I sat on a car hood by plate 128. When they exited, her face paled, avoiding eye contact as I got off. He raised his hands defensively as I reassured them, "You're not worth my time." Then I left in my car. The confrontation stemmed from a lengthy history. I met Jim when his family moved in next door. Both 8 years old, we were the only boys in the neighborhood, naturally becoming close like twin brothers by fourth grade. We played sports together and had each other's backs, remaining inseparable throughout high school. I met Laura when I was in 10th grade and we started dating. By senior year, we were still together. Jim hooked up with Annabelle Spears and they went on double dates with Laura and me. On prom night, Laura gave me her pureness in the next room, where Jim and Annabelle were doing the same thing. After high school, Jim enlisted in the Navy, while Laura and I pursued college degrees. I studied civil engineering at Eastern Michigan University, while Laura chose information technology at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. Despite the proximity of our campuses, maintaining our relationship proved challenging. Laura occasionally canceled our dates to see someone else, unbeknownst to me, until friends at the U of M revealed her actions. One evening, I followed Laura and a guy to a restaurant on Ann Arbor Road. Spotting me, Laura withdrew from him, suggesting familiarity beyond that night. This signaled it wasn't their first encounter, revealing a pattern of behavior I was unaware of. I had no clue what they were discussing, but Laura seemed uneasy, stealing glances at me while I pretended indifference. After finishing my meal, I left without acknowledging her and drove home. The next day, Friday, our planned date came and went without me showing up or even calling to cancel. Instead, I immersed myself in a book, disconnecting from everything. Saturday, I enjoyed a party at the Delta Phi house and met Robin, who left a lasting impression. Sunday, while engrossed in my studies, the doorbell interrupted me. Peering through my telescope, I saw Laura standing outside. I opened the door and she squeezed past me, entering the room. Turning to me, she asked, "Where were you Friday night? Why didn't you answer the phone?" Closing the door, I faced her and inquired which question she wanted me to tackle first. "What?" she responded. There were 3 questions. Which one should I answer first? "Don't sugarcoat it, Rob. What's up?" she pressed. "All right, I'll answer them in my preferred order then. First, where I've been. Mostly here, though I did hit up a frat party Saturday night. Next, why I didn't pick up the phone. Simple. I didn't hear it because you didn't call. Yeah, my bad for unplugging it. Now, where were you Friday night? Right here. Ordered pizza and dove into a great book." "Why didn't you give me a heads up that you weren't coming?" she demanded. "I figured you were busy with your boyfriend," I assumed. "Boyfriend? What are you on about, Rob? You're my boyfriend." "Huh? Then who were you cozying up to at the restaurant on Thursday?" she questioned. "Just a friend. We weren't in love. You were sitting close, leaning on him, and he had his arm around you. That's not lovey-dovey, then what is it? It's meaningless. Rob, we're just friends." "If you don't see any problem, Laura, why didn't you come over and say hi, or invite me to join you? Introduce me to your friend? Have a chat with me before heading off on a date?" Maybe you hesitated because then he'd question who I was and you didn't want to explain. "Why didn't you approach me if it bothered you?" "Because I wanted to observe your behavior, see how you act." "Why would you want to do that?" "Because I've heard too much about your dating life when I'm not around. Heard you've been out with guys on nights we had plans. So, yeah, I wanted to see how you interacted with another guy. You don't control me, Rob. Nowhere does it say we're exclusive." "I thought we did, Laura. I recall giving you my ring and letter sweater to show we were committed." "A sweater and a ring? Seriously, Rob, that's so juvenile." "Maybe, but it happened in high school. And when we graduated, you didn't return them and say, 'School's over, so we're done.' But if you feel it doesn't bind you, I can see it the same way. I met a nice girl at the party and she gave me her number, so I guess I can call her now." Laura's expression turned sour and she spat, "Go ahead, I don't care," before storming off. Watching her leave, I realized she didn't make excuses, promised not to repeat her actions or reassure me of her loyalty. She had transitioned from a schoolgirl to a grown woman, and she demanded a change. It was tough, given our history, but addressing her feelings now was wiser than ignoring them. Busy with homework from Monday to Wednesday, I finally reached out to Robin on Thursday. After chatting, we arranged a date for Friday night. I picked her up, we dined, and instead of a movie, she suggested attending a party she knew about. Arriving at the Belleville apartment around 8, fate played its hand. Laura and the guy she'd been with on Thursday were the first faces I saw. Oh, damn, I muttered. What's wrong? Robin inquired. Them. I gestured at Laura and the guy. Do you know them? I know her. Miss Piggy? Yeah, that's her nickname. How come? She's promiscuous. Earned the label Miss Piggy. Are you sure about that? What else do you call someone who's committed but still entertains other men when her partner's away? Are you certain about that? Especially regarding the rumors? Honestly, I can't confirm firsthand. But several guys claim they've had flirty encounters with her. You didn't mention how you know her. I'm the guy she was supposed to marry until I caught her last Thursday with the guy she's with now. Oh boy, can we expect drama? No? We split on Sunday, so we're officially done. What are the odds I'd hear from you if Thursday hadn't happened? Slim to none. But Thursday did, and we're here to enjoy ourselves. So, shall we? She took my hand and led me to meet the host. Laura, initially off to the side, looked shocked upon seeing me at the party. Whether because she didn't anticipate seeing me here, or because she was caught with a new boyfriend, I'm not sure. Ignoring her, Robin introduced me to Gary and his wife, Artis, and we chatted briefly before getting drinks. The basement had become a dance floor. Robin and I danced, mingled, and had a blast. Whenever I glimpsed Laura, her expression was inscrutable. Around 11, Robin suggested we leave due to her Saturday plans. After bidding farewell to our hosts, I drove Robin home. Your ex seemed fixated on you today, she remarked. Probably caught off guard to see me there. No, I sensed she was uneasy seeing you with someone else. Tough luck. She's the reason our relationship ended. Perhaps, but I don't think she's thrilled about it. Maybe not, but she'll need to adjust. Does that mean I'll see more of you, or that you'll start seeing other girls? I prefer to date one girl at a time. I enjoyed tonight, and I'll ask you out again. If you're on board, you'll be the only one. What if I'm not ready for something exclusive? Then you'll decline, and I'll find someone else to date. If she says no too, I'll check back with you. If you still decline, I'll continue until I find someone who's always a yes. I like your approach, and I'm open to it. How about tomorrow night? Sounds good. I escorted her to the door, bid her good night, and as I turned to depart, she halted me, requesting a moment. Facing her again, she confessed, I never kiss on the first date, but I suppose there's a first time for everything, and kissed me. See you tomorrow, she called out as she headed home. Upon returning home, Dad informed me that Laura had called, expressing distress. I explained it was too late to return her call and promised to do so in the morning as my routine. Saturday morning, I slept in, and when I finally made it to the kitchen for coffee, Mom urged me to call Laura. She's called twice already this morning. Not until I've had my coffee. Are things okay between you two? It's more complicated now. Does she know? She should. It was her decision. Just then, the phone rang. Mom answered, saying it was for me. It's Laura. I picked up and greeted, Yes? Why didn't you call? I got in too late last night to call, and I just woke up. That's not what I meant. Why didn't you call me last night for our usual Friday date? We discussed this last Sunday, Laura. You said we weren't exclusive and agreed to see other people. I told you if you did, I would too, and you left in a hurry. That's not what I intended, Rob. You should have understood that. Don't feed me that, Laura. You were clearly with that guy I saw you with last Thursday. I wasn't with him, Rob. I went to that party alone, and he happened to be there. Sure, Laura. Believe what you want. But it doesn't change anything. I'm hearing things about you and what happened, like how you got the nickname Miss Piggy. I don't know what you've heard, Rob, but it's false. Why shouldn't I believe it? After seeing you with your friend at the restaurant, and I don't buy that you coincidentally bumped into him at the party. He was too close to you and hugging you when I arrived. No, Laura, you're not committed to just me, and I'm not interested in being one of many. Please return the ring and the letter sweater. It seems they hold no significance to you, unlike in high school. I'll catch you later. Goodbye. That seems pretty conclusive, my mom remarked. She decided that being exclusive with me wasn't enough, and as I just said, I'm not interested in being one of many. During all this, I found solace in Robin's company. Jim's letters arrived every couple of weeks, updating me on his life. He graduated from camp and entered specialized training, joining a Navy construction battalion, also known as the Navy SEALs. He mastered both building and demolition. He never inquired about Annabelle, so in my responses I omitted her too. I knew he wouldn't want to hear about her. Within a week of his deployment, Annabelle was already pursuing someone she met at a party. A month later, she moved in with a coworker. 3 months after that, another move. She started cohabiting with a man she met when he towed her car to the store. Rumors circulated that he made her entertain his friends at his apartment. Then, Annabelle vanished without a trace until I received a letter from Jim. He had completed his training and was stationed permanently in Norfolk. Upon his arrival, he summoned Annabelle to join him. I wish you could be my best man, but we had little time to prepare. The sooner we wed, the sooner we can secure housing on base. Poor guy. I feared the moment you left, she'd have another man before the door's echo faded. I wasn't lacking money, thanks to my grandparents who had set up a college fund for me since birth. It had enough to cover tuition and rent for an off-campus apartment if I chose. So, at the start of junior year, Robin and I moved in together, giving me a taste of family life, which I adored. After about 6 months, I began considering making our arrangement permanent. I still harbored doubts that what Robin and I shared was too perfect to be true. Yet she showed no signs of wavering in our relationship, until the day I mentioned searching for an engagement ring. That's when she revealed her plan to return to California after graduation, to marry her childhood sweetheart, now studying in England on a Rhodes Scholarship. They both acknowledged each other's situations, including his relationship with an Englishwoman. We recognized that abstaining from physical closeness for several years wasn't realistic for two healthy young adults. Hence, we agreed to an open relationship. It shouldn't immediately impact us, Rob, she assured. However, it did, especially me. Essentially, I felt yanked from what I thought was a romantic partnership into more of a friendship. The issue was, I didn't find satisfaction in casual flings. I craved more than just physical connection. As a result, Robin and I gradually grew apart. Nearly 4 months to the day after Robin dashed my romantic hopes, she remarked, "You don't seem content here, do you?" I admitted feeling uneasy and explained why. "I'm sorry, darling. Sometimes I wish I didn't love Alex so much so I could fulfill your desires more. If it weren't for him, you'd be my partner." "Thanks, I suppose. So, what's the plan? Shall we flip a coin to decide who stays and who goes?" "No need. I anticipated this moment. Mom hasn't rented out my room yet. She decided to keep it for me, at least until I'm 40 or until she has grandchildren." "So you're staying and I'm leaving. Friends?" "Always." After a hug, she requested, "Last night, please." I'd been back home for a week. On Friday evening, while working on an article in my room, Mom called from downstairs. "Rob, someone's here to see you." Descending, I found Laura conversing with Mom. Mom nodded at me, saying, "I'll leave you two alone," and retreated to the kitchen. "Hi, Rob." "Hi, Laura. How are you?" "Okay, I guess. Hoping things will improve." "Oh?" "Robin called, mentioned you're back on the market, and hinted I should hurry if I want to be first in line." "Why vie for the first spot? Why vie for it at all?" "There wouldn't be a line if I hadn't acted foolishly. In fact, Robin wouldn't even exist." "I'm not vying for a spot, Rob. I just want to return to where I belong." "Where's that?" She lifted her left hand, revealing, "I never returned your ring." My class ring adorned her left ring finger. "There's a party at Alice Johnson's tonight. Want to go with me?" She dangled the idea, adding, "Just so everyone's clear, I've staked my claim. I've got you back and I'm broadcasting it." The real surprise came post-party. She remained quiet as I drove her home, gazing out the passenger window. When we reached her house, I suggested apartment hunting on Saturday. Renting an apartment is more economical than constant motel stays. "Are you asking if I want to move in with you?" It's crossed my mind. "What time?" "Around 9. "Great, you've got yourself a date." Laura and I settled into a 2-bedroom apartment situated roughly midway between Ann Arbor and Ypsilanti. We converted the second bedroom into an office, housing Laura's computer desk alongside mine. Around a month post-move, Jim returned home on a 30-day leave, spending ample time with Laura and me. Seeing Jim and Annabelle together, they seemed to gel well, making me question my earlier suspicions about her. However, 3 weeks after Jim returned to duty, Annabelle showed up. With Jim deployed to Iraq, Annabelle opted not to wait for his return to base. She vanished for 2 weeks, staying with her current partner. Upon her visit to Jim in Norfolk 3 weeks later, rumors resurfaced about her liaisons with a former flame, including alleged revelries and hosting group encounters. I contemplated confronting her, but Laura dissuaded me, asserting it was none of our concern. Besides, as far as we knew, Jim and Annabelle had an open relationship, a not uncommon arrangement during prolonged military separations. Laura doubted Jim would consent to such an agreement, but advising him of Annabelle's behavior might backfire. Instead, she suggested I let it be. Jim returned from Afghanistan just in time to serve as my best man at my wedding to Laura. Afterwards, he and Annabelle relocated to Norfolk, where he completed the last 9 months of his military service. Upon discharge, they returned home and Jim secured a job with a construction company as a heavy equipment operator. Over the next 2 years, the Marshalls, Jim and Annabelle, became regular guests in our home, visiting us at least once every fortnight. There were no signs of trouble between Jim and Annabelle, and there was no indication of infidelity on her part. Laura's theory seemed plausible, especially when the company Jim worked for won a contract to lay a pipeline in Alaska. Given the harsh conditions at the construction site, Jim opted to leave Annabelle at home for the 4-month duration of his assignment. However, barely a week later, Annabelle was spotted in a motel room with Gary Mellows, the owner of Jim's company. Subsequently, Gary's car was frequently seen parked in Jim's driveway almost every night of the week. Complications arose with the Alaska project, extending Jim's absence by another 2 months. Coincidentally, Laura and Annabelle shared the same doctor, and Laura happened to be at the doctor's office the day Annabelle received distressing news. She was 7 weeks pregnant, and Jim had been away for over 3 months. Laura learned about Annabelle's pregnancy from 2 nurses who had attended school with us. Aware of Laura's connection to Annabelle, they inquired how she thought Jim would react to the news. In the realm of gossip among friends, patient confidentiality sometimes takes a back seat. Laura speculated briefly before suggesting, "Jim may never learn the truth of my suspicions. Annabelle will likely opt for infanticide, resolving the situation before Jim returns." However, events unfolded differently. Someone, whom Laura wouldn't dissuade, informed Jim of the situation. Upon his return, Jim rented a car and discreetly parked nearby until he witnessed Mellows arriving at his house and entering with Annabelle. After waiting 15 minutes, allowing them time to engage, Jim entered the house with a digital camera, capturing evidence of their affair. Subsequently, an ambulance responded to an emergency call, and Mellows was hospitalized. When the police arrived, they initially intended to detain Jim until he presented the photographic evidence. Jim had used a Canon Rebel camera set to continuous mode, which captured Mellows lunging at him in the series of images. He might have simply aimed to retrieve the camera from Jim's possession, but based on the sequence of photos, it was evident to Jim that he was under attack and merely defending himself. The police accepted this explanation and departed. 20 minutes later, Annabelle emerged onto the porch with a single suitcase, locking the door behind her. The divorce proceeded smoothly, as did the lawsuit filed against Mellows for causing alienation of affection. Additionally, Jim filed a molestation suit against Mellows, alleging that Mellows had hired him only to send him out of town and then move in with his wife. Mellows had the option to settle out of court, avoiding public attention, but he chose to contest the case, resulting in his actions with the employee's wife becoming public knowledge. Following an extended absence from town, the jury ruled in Jim's favor, awarding him $1.3 million. After settling legal fees and taxes, he retained slightly over $750,000. He used this to pay off the house, install an in-ground pool, and purchase a new Ford F-350. Once the divorce was finalized, Annabelle vanished from view, rumored to have relocated out of town. To resolve the lawsuit, Mellows had to sell off some assets and property. Additionally, he suffered a loss of business as some customers and potential buyers deemed him untrustworthy due to his actions towards his employee's spouse. Jim still had some funds remaining and proposed to me the idea of starting my own company and taking over the business that Mellows had forfeited. I would handle the design, while Jim would manage construction. After careful consideration with Laura, we decided to proceed, leading to the establishment of R&J Constructors. As partners, we've managed to thrive. Not only did we attract many clients who had left Mellows, but we also outperformed him on several projects. With human nature being what it is, Jim ensured everyone was aware whenever we outperformed Mellows. The subsequent 5 years passed swiftly. While Jim explored various relationships, he never found someone he wanted to commit to long term. He spent considerable time with Laura and me, typically joining us once a week with his girlfriend. Things were going exceedingly well. Laura had ascended the corporate ladder, achieving the position of regional manager and emerging as a frontrunner for the vice president role. I believed things couldn't improve further, and unfortunately, I was correct. On a Tuesday, as I wrapped up a lunch meeting with a prospective client, Gary Mellows approached and asked if he could buy me a drink. Personally, I held no ill will towards Gary. I reasoned that if someone like Annabelle, whom I considered less than reputable, offered solace to a lonely individual like Gary, it wasn't fair to fault him for accepting. I never bought into the narrative about Gary orchestrating Jim's departure for Annabelle's sake. Knowing Annabelle's character, I speculated she might have visited Gary's office to collect Jim's paycheck and expressed her loneliness due to his absence. In any case, Gary's issues were tied to Jim, not me, so I accepted his offer for a drink. Once he settled in, he inquired, "How's everything going?" "Could be better," I replied. "Perhaps you'll contemplate selling," he proposed. "Selling? Why on earth would I do that?" I retorted. "To make your pal Jim my business partner," he suggested. "Are you out of your mind?" I exclaimed. "Not really." "Take a look at this," he said, opening his briefcase and presenting a folder to me. I accepted it, opened it, and was taken aback. The folder contained a photo of Laura and Jim holding hands as they entered a motel room. Several more images depicted them entering or exiting the motel room, along with a handful showing them embracing and kissing in various locations. I glanced up at Gary, who explained, "Apologies. I was tailing him to gather evidence for revenge. When the private investigator handed me those photos, I didn't know she was your spouse. I only discerned from the rings in the pictures that she belonged to someone else. So, I hired a PI to uncover her identity to prepare for my retaliation." "Why? You were involved," I pointed out. "You followed his orders," Gary countered. "No, I didn't," I refuted. "Yes, I had a fling with his wife, but I never orchestrated his departure to pursue her. She entered my office, shut the door, and began undressing." Meeting her gaze, she declared, "Since you sent Jim away, you'll have to look after me until he returns." Being unattached, I had to decline Annabelle. To me, this entire debacle is Jim's responsibility. Initially, everyone's aware of Annabelle's promiscuity, a trait she's carried since high school. Jim should have been aware, but he didn't act on it. "No, Rob, he hit me hard with that lawsuit, and I intend to retaliate. I'm just sorry you're caught in the middle. Any idea how long this has been going on?" "According to the private investigator's findings, it's been at least a year, possibly longer." "How could it have gone unnoticed for so long? If she never raised suspicions, how could you uncover it?" "So, why the interest in buying me out? What's the benefit of becoming Jim's partner?" "Consider it equal partnership. I'll have an equal say. If he proposes Plan A, I'll advocate for Plan B. No matter his preference, I'll oppose it. Plus, I'll oversee pricing and ensure our rates undercut the competition. I'll drive the company into bankruptcy, and Jim will suffer the consequences." "But you will too." "Not entirely. I've done my due diligence. If the business collapses, we'll liquidate assets, and I'll recoup most of my investment. I won't profit, unless you count earnings from my other ventures undercutting Jim's bids. But I won't endure substantial losses either." "What if he resorts to molestation until you sell your share? Last time, he caught me with his wife, and I prioritized seizing the camera over self-defense. If he tries again, it won't be as easy for him. In fact, I'm confident I can handle him if necessary, so are you interested?" "Possibly, but I want to conduct my own investigation first if I decide to proceed. Do you have a ballpark figure in mind?" I proposed a sum, and he deemed it feasible, advising me to contact him if I opt to move forward. I departed the meeting with Mellows feeling utterly shaken. How could Laura and Jim have carried on like this for nearly a year without me suspecting a thing? I had observed no signs of discontent from Laura, no decline in affection. Our life appeared unchanged, at least from my perspective. What had gone awry? While I trusted Detective Gary's findings and evidence, I couldn't dismiss the possibility of tampered photos and Gary's personal motives. I needed certainty before taking action. Returning to the office, I reached out to a friend at an insurance agency for recommendations on investigative services. Armed with this, I arranged a meeting, and 13 days later, I felt assured. On purported work trips, Jim rendezvoused with Laura at the Comfort Inn on Melrose. How she managed time off from work for these liaisons eluded me. Now I had to determine my course of action, though my desired path was clear. I just needed to devise a strategy. After 2 hours with a lawyer, I had a clear understanding of my options and obligations. With no fault grounds, assets would be divided evenly. Concerned about Laura's share of proceeds from selling my stake in the company, I realized deception might be necessary. Even so, she'd still receive some of the proceeds. I struck a deal with Mellows to officially sell him my stake in the company for a third of its actual value. One-third of the payment went into a bank account solely in my name, while the remaining two-thirds were deposited into an offshore account I'd arranged. The agreement stipulated that Mellows wouldn't appear at the office or occupy my desk until the morning. I handed Laura and Jim the necessary documents. Laura filed for divorce, citing infidelity, while Jim pursued a case for alienation of affection. Despite residing in a no-fault state, I could still pursue legal action for infidelity, potentially resulting in a slightly more favorable division of assets, though not a 50-50 split. To substantiate the claim of infidelity, evidence was crucial. Examination of reports from both Gary's private investigator and mine revealed consistent rendezvous at the same motel, always on Wednesdays. My detective secured a room for surveillance, incentivizing the porter to ensure Laura and Jim were assigned to that specific room. On Wednesday morning, I instructed Maria, our receptionist, to inform Jim that I'd be absent due to a dentist appointment, and to mention the possibility of my continued absence in the afternoon if I didn't feel well after the procedure. After the effects of the gas wore off, I exited the house and returned after Laura had left for work. The locksmith arrived promptly at 9 to change all the locks. Once he finished, I headed to the bank and emptied out both the accounts and the safe. My lawyer advised taking only half, but my mood was unwaveringly resolute. Screw you, Laura. I had no intention of making things easy for her. She'd have to fight for her share eventually. I also withdrew the funds I expected from the business. If it proved excessive, Jim could contest it in court, but until then, it was mine. My detective phoned at 12:10 to report that the couple had checked into room 128. I drove over, had a brief chat with the detective, then stationed myself on the hood of a nearby car, waiting for them to emerge. After a tense encounter, I drove away. Just as I was leaving, a man approached them and handed over the papers. Alongside the divorce papers, Laura received a temporary restraining order mandating her to stay 500 feet away from me in the house. Securing it required a bit of trickery. I had to fabricate a story, claiming a third party had tipped me off about Jim and Laura discussing my insurance coverage and business shares value. A hearing was pending to decide if the restraining order would become permanent, but it might take a few weeks. It was just another tactic to unsettle Laura. The crucial point was that she couldn't enter the house without court supervision, and I had no intention of making myself available to make keys for the new locks. Along with Jim's papers for the foreclosure attachment suit was a brief note. You're familiar with how these suits go, aren't you? How does it feel to be on the receiving end? Driving away from the motel, I called Gary on his cell phone. Everything's arranged. Have a good first day at the office tomorrow. I drove to the airport, parked in the long-term lot, stashed my cell phone in the glove compartment, and boarded the flight to Cabo San Lucas. After a week of scuba diving and beach lounging, I returned home. Upon switching on my phone, I found it inundated with voicemails. Most were from Laura, as expected, but there were also 4 from Jim. You'd think he'd be the last person eager to talk to me. Nevertheless, I had no interest in conversing with either of them. Would I desire an explanation? Naturally. I'd want to understand why. Yet I had resolved to leave them in the past and focus on moving forward. Their reasons for betrayal were not something I wished to dwell on. My attorney was aware of my week-long absence, so I decided to inform him of my return. He suggested I contact Laura, who had been trying to reach me twice daily to access the house and retrieve my belongings under court supervision. I was about to instruct him to make arrangements with the court to allow her entry when a different idea dawned on me, a chance to further unsettle her. I phoned her and inquired about her needs. I need my clothes and other items, but I can't enter the house even with court supervision because I lack a key, and they won't let me break in, she explained. You have nothing there to take, I countered. I donated everything to Goodwill. I don't want any reminders of your deceitful behavior. There's nothing of yours left, not even a stray hair clip, she retorted. You had no right to do that, she exclaimed. I had every right, just as you had the right to betray me. We need to talk, I responded. It's not what you think, she pleaded. Be honest, Laura. I know you weren't happy with Jim. I'm sure of it. Goodbye, Laura. I ended the call. Although Laura's belongings remained in the house, I was intentionally delaying her retrieval. It was my way of unsettling her, ensuring she wouldn't get her things back anytime soon. I've always had a good rapport with Maria, our multitasking receptionist, secretary, bookkeeper, cook, and cleaner, so I phoned her to check in. Not too bad for me, but things aren't going well for the company. There's constant bickering between Gary and Jim over trivial matters. Jim gives orders, and Gary refuses to comply. Orders get placed and canceled in quick succession. Work sits idle while they sort out their disputes. I was fed up, so I handed in my resignation last Friday. But Gary offered to double my salary if I stayed, so I decided against leaving. They even got into a physical altercation last Thursday, but there was no clear winner, although Jim ended up with a broken nose.
Why did you leave us? Why side with Gary?
I shared the entire saga with her. She fell silent for a moment before responding.
Now I have another reason to stick around.
And what's that? I can assist Gary. I never cared for Jim. He persistently flirted with me despite knowing I was engaged. Once, he even insinuated that he'd let me go if I agreed to a date with him. We both know what he meant by date. When I questioned what you would think of him letting me go, he fell silent. You should have informed me. Why? It was a personal issue and I handled it. I sympathize with you and Laura, Rob, but there might be a positive aspect to it, at least for me. How's that? It means you're available again. How do you feel about being pursued? Weren't you engaged? I was, until I caught that idiot doing to me what he did to you, Laura. When did it happen? About 3 weeks ago. Well, honey, if you're interested, I'll consider you first when I start dating again. But that won't happen for a while. I won't give Laura any ammunition. I can wait. But keep me in mind if you ever feel lonely and want company for dinner. I will, sweetie, and thank you. My phone rang 16 times that day. 14 calls from Laura, and 2 from Jim. I couldn't imagine anything that guy could say that I'd want to hear. If he was calling to ask for something, it definitely wasn't from me. I deleted all the calls and went home. Made myself dinner. Then, on a whim, I called Gary Mellows to check on his scheme. Not bad. Not bad at all. I made sure to be at your desk when he arrived at work. He saw me, frowned, and demanded to know why I was in the office and sitting at your desk. I chuckled and informed him that I was his new partner. The look on his face was priceless. You could practically see the steam coming out of his ears as he perused a copy of our agreement. I got us off to a proper start, almost immediately. He called for a fuel truck because the front-end loader and other equipment at Wilkins's site had run out of diesel fuel. Once he left the office, I phoned and canceled the order. One of the loaders ran out of fuel, and Jim called Allied and gave them an earful. They informed him that I canceled the order and that they wouldn't tolerate such behavior from him, suggesting he find fuel elsewhere. That's when he approached me, demanding to know what I was doing. I explained that Allied was overcharging us and I was seeking a better price, and things went downhill from there. A little birdie told me you two ended up in a fist fight. Indeed. It all concluded last Thursday. And the outcome? I may have been a tad optimistic when I mentioned I thought I could take him, but I got past it and gave him a good punching. Well, carry on, and best of luck with your plan. After hanging up, I headed to the room I'd turned into an office, fired up my computer, and began drafting my resume. I planned to kickstart my job hunt the following day. As I typed away on the keyboard, the doorbell chimed. Opening the door, I found Jim standing there. What the hell do you want? We need to talk, Rob. No, you don't, creep. It's not my fault, Rob. She came on to me. She caught me in a bad mood because of what Annabelle did to me. I wasn't thinking straight, Rob. I'm sorry, Rob, but it wasn't my fault. I didn't pursue her. But you knew she was my wife. You knew how you felt when you found out about Annabelle. And you didn't even stop to think you'd make me feel the same way, did you? You had to know. I'd find out sooner or later. Probably the same way you found out about Annabelle. Someone told you. Well, creep, somebody told me you're a scoundrel. As far as I'm concerned, you're supposed to be my friend. And even if I believe Laura made a move on you, which I don't, you should have turned her down just like I turned Annabelle away when she made advances on me. You knew you were better than that, but you went ahead anyway. And even if she initiated it and caught you off guard, that doesn't excuse the second, third, fourth, and however many times after that. No, you stabbed me in the back, plain and simple. Why did you load me up with Mellows? Because in the mood I was in when I found out and the rage I felt, if I had come after you, things might have ended differently. But you're not worth going to jail over. Besides, involving Mellows will bring you grief that will last far longer than any consequences from a physical altercation. But you know what? The rage I felt at the time is gone. And that's when I punch him. I grabbed his shirt, pulled him into the house, slammed the door shut, and unleashed my anger on him. He was unconscious when I dragged him out and put him in the car. You wouldn't believe the grin on my face when I got back inside. I might have the police showing up, but I wasn't concerned. I could simply say he attacked me and I acted in self-defense. I'll refer to his altercation with Mellows and claim he's upset because I sold my share of the business to Mellows, and he's trying to retaliate. The next day, I sent out 14 resumes and checked in with my attorney. He mentioned a hearing on the temporary restraining order set for the following Monday, but hadn't heard from Laura or her lawyer. Contemplating contacting Laura, I decided against it. Delaying her hiring a lawyer meant delaying any communication between us. Throughout the week, I received responses to my resumes and traveled for interviews in Atlanta on Wednesday and Baltimore on Thursday. Though I enjoyed both interviews, I also heard back from a San Diego company, sparking my interest in warmer climates. I scheduled an interview for the following Tuesday. Monday arrived with the restraining order hearing. Surprisingly, the judge found no grounds to uphold it, ordering me to grant Laura access to the house. Laura attended with her lawyer, attempting to speak with me. I stepped aside, sought my lawyer's assistance, and returned to her side. You wait until my attorney arrives before speaking to me, I insisted. I just wanted to inform you I'll be coming tonight, she replied. No, you won't. I have a job interview at 2:30 and won't return until Wednesday. You can visit after 6. Her lawyer began to speak, but I interjected. She will not step foot in this house without supervision. A court representative will oversee everything, and you're welcome to have your attorney present too. No, that's not satisfactory. They won't understand what she's taking. If she grabs something inappropriate, I'll have to fight to retrieve it. She was away for 2 weeks, and managed. Another 48 hours won't injure her, I stated firmly. Her lawyer sighed. Then let's await the judge's decision. As he turned to leave, Laura intervened. Forget it. I can wait. I nodded and said Wednesday at 6, before departing. Wait a moment, Rob. Can we have a conversation? No, I replied, exiting the building. Satisfied with my interview in San Diego, I returned home, eagerly anticipating news from them. At 6, Laura arrived accompanied by a representative from her lawyer's office. The court-appointed woman arrived at 26, and during those 20 minutes we conversed over coffee. She explained her role as an observer for the court, tasked with inventorying seized items and noting disputed ones. I assured her there was no need for a list of disputed items. She can take whatever she wants. If that's your stance, why did you take a firm position against her? She betrayed me, and she did it with someone who had been my best friend for over 25 years. I couldn't retaliate physically without facing legal consequences. But I had to do something to retaliate and inflict some pain on her. It wasn't much, but it was something. As the doorbell rang, I ushered Laura and her accompanying man from the lawyer's office inside, then stepped outside to mow the lawn. When I returned indoors, everyone had left except Laura, who sat at the kitchen table sipping tea. She glanced up as I entered. You deceived me. You didn't donate any of my belongings to Goodwill? Perhaps not. But I relished seeing your reaction when you claimed I had no right to do so. I hadn't anticipated everything ending up belonging to her. It'll take me longer to sort it out than I thought. I retrieved my key ring from my pocket, took out my house key, and extended it across the table to her. No need to move. You can collect the keys on Friday. I'll have vacated the premises by then. Why? I'm interviewing, and I'm relocating as soon as I secure a job. I mean, why take those actions if you intended to give me the house and leave? What's with the restraining order and the falsehoods about disposing of my belongings? That's a naive question. After what you put me through, I had to retaliate somehow. Just be grateful I opted for a peaceful resolution rather than a violent one. Just because I refrained from attacking you doesn't absolve you, but it's the best recourse I had without facing legal repercussions. I remember you declined when I asked if we could talk tonight, but I'm still going to make an attempt to persuade you that divorce isn't necessary. Let's be realistic, Laura. After what you've done, there's absolutely no way we can salvage our marriage. But that doesn't change my feelings for you, Rob. I love you, and you know it. What happened with Jim was a mistake. Just a foolish mistake. I've always liked Jim, but my feelings for him don't compare to the love I have for you. Your feelings for Jim don't matter. The fact remains, you had a good time with him, regardless of whether you loved him. It still constitutes infidelity, and you shouldn't doubt how I feel about that. Just remember how devastated I was when I found out about Annabelle and Jim. I was so upset that I considered telling him, but you convinced me otherwise. That should have made it clear how I would feel if you did the same to me. And don't give me excuses like you didn't want me to find out. Cheaters always get caught. Always. Jim discovered the truth about Annabelle because someone witnessed them together and informed him. It's the same way I found out about you and Jim going into that motel room. Doesn't my love for you matter? No, Laura, it doesn't. Because it wasn't enough to prevent you from betraying me.
But Rob, it didn't mean anything. Truly, it was insignificant. It was an unforeseen circumstance. An accident?
How could having relations with my former best friend be classified as an accident? He visited our home while you were in Santa Fe. He was distraught about Annabelle. Even after cutting her out of his life, he still longed for her. We had a drink, and as he began to cry, I embraced him, trying to console him. I recall thinking, this is so wrong, I shouldn't be doing this. Yet it felt oddly comforting. I must admit it felt strangely exhilarating. The next time you were out of town, Jim came by, and we both understood his intentions, and we resumed our liaison. There was no love involved, Rob. As cliché as it sounds, it was purely physical. Just a fleeting thrill in my life. Throughout it all, I never neglected you. I love you sincerely, Rob, and you know it. We can overcome this. Divorce isn't necessary.
Love has no bearing on this, Laura. I need a divorce. I can't coexist with someone who has betrayed me. It's straightforward, Laura. You betrayed my trust. If I stayed, I'd be vigilantly monitoring you, anticipating another transgression. By your own admission, you continued because you found pleasure in the deceit. You can make all the promises you want about not repeating it, but your assurances hold no weight. You pledged to forsake all others when we wed, and you broke that vow. I find it hard to trust anything you say. Laura, Jim's version of events completely contradicts yours. According to him, it wasn't an accident. He says you were actively playing a game with him. Either he's lying, or you are. The issue is that after what both of you did, neither of you is trustworthy to me. So I can't favor one story over the other. The bottom line, Laura, is that we've broken up as a couple. I'm not giving up, Rob. I'm going to fight for the divorce. I know we can get through this because we love each other. You're mad at me right now, and I get that. But I can make a promise to you and keep it, especially now that I understand what breaking that promise could cost me. My lawyer says he can get the court to order counseling, and I know that can help. I love you, Rob, and I'm not letting you go. You don't seem to understand that I don't want you right now. Okay, I'll admit that I still love you, and it'll take me a while to get over it. But there's no way I can live with you again. Every time I go to bed with you, I'll think about you being with that idiot who was my best friend. And I can't live like that. You won't fight for a divorce from Laura? Because if you do, I will release the videotape of your last meeting with Jim. Every family member, every friend, and all your co-workers will get a copy. I will create your own adult site for you, and there are dozens of amateur adult sites where I can post it. And I will do it with your full name and address. It'll make your life very interesting. Crap, Rob. No such video exists. Oh, no, wait, here. I went to the den where I had my briefcase, pulled out a copy. Crap, Rob. No such video exists. Oh, no, wait, here. I went to the den where I had my briefcase, pulled out a copy of the disc, went back to the kitchen and handed it to her. Take a look at it. After you watch it, decide if you want someone else to watch it. Now, if you don't mind, there's something I need to do. You can pick up the house on Friday, but for now, you have to go on Thursday and Friday. I moved out of the house and put most of my stuff in storage. Then I rented a room at the executive suites for a month, hoping to have a job by the end of it. Over the next 2 weeks, I traveled to Salt Lake City, Philadelphia, Atlanta, Chicago, and Detroit for interviews, all of which I felt good about. But I didn't hear back from any of them. I sat down at my desk, calculated my finances, and realized I could live without a job for about 6 years. I started looking into other cities and states with a lower cost of living, hoping to stretch those 6 years to 8, maybe 10. Laura signed the divorce papers and returned them to my attorney. I almost regretted that she did that. I would have loved to scatter a CD of her and Jim all over the house. But a deal is a deal. We agreed on a 50,
50 division of the property with each party paying their own attorney fees. Since I filed the suit, I paid the legal fees. Laura wanted the house, and my half of the equity was slightly more than what I had borrowed from the bank, so that worked out. True, I had to give Laura half of what I got from selling my half of the company, but I had planned for that. She claimed I sold out too cheaply, but it didn't matter because the other two-thirds of what I got from the sale was safely tucked away. I heard some interesting gossip. Apparently, as soon as I was out of the picture, Jim started intimidating Laura so relentlessly that she had to get a restraining order against him. Not that I cared, of course, but it amused me. I decided to wait until the divorce was finalized before taking any action. Eventually, I began receiving calls from some of the companies where I had interviewed. A company in San Diego called, asking me to return for another interview. However, before I could call to arrange it, Gary contacted me. "How would you like your company back?" "Why would I want my company back?" "I sold it to you so I could go back to Jim and leave him behind. Why would I want to become his partner again?" "You wouldn't want to, but you don't have to. After our last argument, I said, if you're so unhappy with me as a partner, I'll either buy you out or sell your half to someone else." He thought for about 30 seconds, and then asked how much I'd pay for his half. He accepted half of what I gave you. The question remains, why should I want the company back if you've done even half of what you said you would to sabotage Jim? The company might not be worth much now. You could be surprised. "Come to the office and let's talk." I figured I had nothing to lose, so I went to see him. When I walked in, Maria jumped up from her desk and hugged me, then poked her head into Gary's office to tell him I'd arrived. "As you know, I only bought you out to mess with Marshall. I didn't really need him, but things are changing. I'm getting more into the construction side of the business. I want to move away from the engineering part. On one hand, I couldn't get the engineers I wanted, so I started considering alternatives. The solution that came to mind was to call you and ask you to set up a company that I would contract with for the engineering work. But then Marshall sold me the company, and I thought, why not just sell it to you and contract with you? I can't afford to buy out both my half and Jim's half. You won't have to pay much because the company isn't worth much anymore. Since I own everything, I've transferred all the construction work and equipment to my other company. What's left is purely the engineering part. I'll sell you the company for what I paid Jim and sign a 5-year contract for engineering services. Plus, the company still has contracts with about 15 other firms. I don't see how you can lose." "How much did you give Jim?" He told me, and it was less than I had in my offshore account. "But there is one condition." "And what's that?" I asked. "I have no secrets from Maria, and I shared the idea with her. She said that if you agree, she will stay with you and not move to my company. If you accept the deal, you will keep her on your team." I didn't have to think long, and I told him that I would agree to the deal, but I wouldn't do it until my divorce was finalized, which would be in about 3 weeks at the earliest. Gary said that was fine with him, and we agreed to the deal. As I was leaving the office, Maria said, "I heard. Don't forget that at the end of those 3 weeks, you promised I would be first on the list." "I didn't think you were serious about that." "You can rest assured I am," she said with a 1,000-watt smile. As I pulled away from the curb, my cell phone rang, and it was my lawyer. Jim had learned his lesson from what happened to Gary. When Gary sued Jim and called my lawyer with an offer to settle the case, I told the lawyer to accept it. I made it the rest of the way to my room at the executive suites with a huge smile on my face. In 3 weeks, I could start a new life with a new job, a new girlfriend, and money in the bank. I could spend those 3 weeks looking for a place to live and shopping for furniture. Who says nice guys always finish last?